Welcome back. With us tonight, Fargo Deputy Mayor Tim Mahoney and brand new Fargo City Commissioner Melissa Sobolik. To both of you, thanks for being here. Dr. Mahoney, I'm going to start with you. We were talking about 1.1 million sandbags being done. Now they're saying, hey, we only need 100,000. It's not our first rodeo. How are you off by 1 million sandbags?
Weather got too nice. I know the Weather Service came out and gave us prediction that ranged anywhere from 33 feet to 43 feet, which makes it extremely hard to figure out what to do. And as you know, in Fargo, we never want to lose this fight, so we're always going to prepare for the worst. And they were really concerned about what's happening. But I think what's happened is that we're in late spring, and I don't think people have figured out what happens when the soil warms up and the frost line goes out. And Dennis Wallaker's talked about that a little bit, is that there may be some absorption or what we call infiltration into the soil. And we're hoping that's what's going to happen.
So is it safe to say that farmers now going out and doing some tiling may have actually helped mitigate some of this flood? Dr. Mahoney, you want to take that one?
Yeah, I was going to say.
I was going to watch what she said to that. Tiling is always a great argument. We have some people who swear that tiling will pull the soil, pull the water down, and then hang on to it for a while and stay in the land. And there's other people that swear that if you pull the water down, it'll get to the streams faster and get to us faster. So we're not sure. I've seen people argue that, both sides of that argument.
What would you say, your best estimated guess?
We're seeing more water in the valley than we've ever seen at a faster rate. And if you look at what we're seeing in the pollutions that we get in the water, one would have to assume that when we have people putting fertilizer and different things on the land, if it's getting us to in Fargo, it's not being absorbed into the soils, it's not leaching into the soils. So our concern is that with all the drainage and the tiling, that we're getting more water in the system.
But you're also saying that the soil is also absorbing more, so it can be also a good thing as well, correct?
Well, late spring, what we think of this late spring thaw, that's what we're going to get out of that. Typically in a March, we're not going to have that. In March, we're going to have frozen soil. So what happens is if you tile or ditch or drain, you may get more water faster. And
this is for both you. Melissa, I'll start with you. Obviously, we had, the cops out, all this stuff going across where it almost looks like mass hysteria at times because of this National Weather Service prediction, all the sandbags, all the people. What's going to be the final bill and the cost of this, and who's going to pay for it?
I think that's a great question, and a lot of people have been calling and asking. We prepared for 43 feet because that's what we were told, and as a city, we don't want to lose the fight, and so we have to make sure that we're prepared for that. And now that they've scaled back, the predictions, we've scaled back our operations. We're not going as high on the dikes. We're not going with as many sandbags. The great news about sandbags is, as we see this year, they can be reused. We can heat them. We can keep them for the next flood fight. We won't have to put as many clay levees out there. And as far as paying for it, it's a combination of FEMA and the city and the Corps of Engineers. It's actually all of us working together, federal, state, and local governments working together to save the city.
So, Mr. Mahoney, best guesstimation, what's going to be the final total tally, and what's the city of Fargo going to be on the hook for?
The trouble we have with FEMA right now is the rules are changing, and as we go with the government, typically the rules will change a bit. So you have to have $1 million into the project or into the problem of the flood fight before FEMA will consider paying any part of it. And now we're getting a changing in the territory on that. Used to be the government would take 75% of that cost. Presently, we're having some discussions on that. So right now, we will be at $1 million, I'm sure, but what we're going to have to do is have a discussion with the federal again. And what happens whenever you have a federal disaster, it seems like people change the rules.
And is part of that change due to sequester by chance, or?
Could be sequester, could be the fact that when you had the big disasters out east, people realized how much this cost the country, so they say, let's change the rules. And what we try to go by, what are the usual rules we have to go by? And the rules are, the feds usually help out in a local disaster because no community could absorb all the cost of a disaster drill.
So again, best guesstimation, what's Fargo on the hook for?
Right now, I think we're around $1 million where we'll hit. We're not there yet, but we're getting close.
I want to talk about the homes in Oak Creek. You voted to obviously demolish these homes. With where the river levels are supposed to be at now going to crest. Would those homes in Oak Creek be safe with this number?
Well, the answer to that is no, they wouldn't. The City Commission, even before I was on there last November, voted to actually buy out the homes, to sell the homes. They were on auction. They were supposed to be auctioned off in March, and there was a blizzard which prevented that, which brought it back to the city to say, should we look at something else? So had we not had the blizzard, they would have been sold or moved or salvaged, and they would have been gone anyway. And so I think this was just a reiteration of, yes, the right decision was made.
happens if they couldn't be transported because of a tree ordinance?
There are a lot of trees down in that neighborhood, and there were a lot of neighbors, which we're finding out were the ones that sold their homes, were saying they didn't want the trees moved. There are some narrow roadways there. We actually talked with the engineering and, with the neighbors, and there may have been some options to split the homes and move them. It would have been extremely
difficult.
difficult.
You're saying that we're spending 110% to buy the home,
yes,
and then you're saying, but we can't move it. This is taxpayer money, keep in mind,
right,
but we can't move it because 4 or 5 people in the area say, no, we want to keep our trees there?
Correct. Yes.
Well, there's two parts of that, though, Chris, because what happened on that is that to move them out, your boulevard trees had to be taken out, and we had an estimate of 100 trees had to be taken out. So there's two sides of the trees. Second side is there's trees in the drainage that people didn't want out. They did 13 renditions of what to do in Oak Creek. The engineers came up with 13 different plans.
But let me ask you this. How can people look you in the eye, and I want you both to look me in the eye and say, you know what, you guys are being fiscally responsible. We are demolishing homes at 110% of what they're worth, and you're not willing to move them because of a tree ordinance. That's not being fiscally responsible.
No, it's different than that. The fact is that we pay 110%, but we're going to put a dike in that backyard that protects the whole city. So the problem is that can we have a safe dike in the back area if you don't do that? So if we do the other fiscal part and paid $18 million to put a dike in the back of those yards that didn't protect the community,
but wait, what I'm asking you
us.
is why not say, okay, let's skip the tree ordinance for a minute and let's move these good homes out of there that we can actually get some value back. You just spent 110% on these homes of taxpayer money.
Right. And part of it is I don't believe that there is a tree ordinance in place. It was actually the neighbors coming forward and saying you would completely ruin the neighborhood.
Make them pay for it, not me.
And that's a conversation that, you guys probably had last November. That was before I was even on the commission. And now when they're coming forward, they're saying the people that are left don't care about the trees, tear them down, move the homes. And we didn't have that opportunity.
Last question, does Eddie Scholzen have any feet to stand on saying, hey, you guys are trying to protect the wealthy people in the area?
Absolutely
no,
not.
We're protecting the whole community. Because when you really look at this is that if we have the new FEMA rules, we're all going to have flood insurance south of 94. If everybody has to do flood insurance, somebody with a normal house that does not have flood insurance now, their level is going to be the basement level. So anybody who has a basement is going to have flood insurance, paying anywhere from $1,000 to $1,500 a year. So if you do that to everybody, a normal, modest house, that's too much money to be paying for anybody.
To both of you, thank you very much for being here. I really appreciate your time. Stay with us. When we come back, there's a thing going on at MSUM tomorrow called the Slut Walk to Stop Rape. I don't get it. We got a couple of special guests. We're going to discuss it. And as always, go to our website, join the conversation, 630pov.com. We'll be right back.